from the local station. This is Weather Authority Weekday.
Hey everyone, meteorologist Chris Holtzman here. Happy Wednesday, the middle of the week, and certainly the weather. We've had some things like the frost and freeze this morning. We have a meteor shower later this week where it peaks, and then we're talking about national weather. So a lot to talk about on today's episode. So we'll start out with what's happening this morning, because what's happening is it's cold out there, and we saw temperatures this morning in the 20s and 30s, mainly along and northwest of the metro. That's where we had frost advisories and freeze warnings in effect. In fact, look at this morning in Waycross, 29 degrees. How about that? 38 in St. Mary's, 34 in Brunswick today, 36 in Lake City this morning. And then a little bit more mild, especially along and east of the metro, where we have temperatures this morning in the 40s and 50s. So you might be wondering, well, why exactly did frost form, and how does it form? Well, I want to start out with how the atmosphere cools. So you've probably heard us use the term radiational cooling, and that is due to the temperature dropping very rapidly in the evening after sunset. So say in this example right now, we have a temperature of 71 degrees. During the day, of course, the sun heats the earth, and that allows the surface to warm. But what about at night? Well, remember, at night, heat rises, it cools the surface, and the cooling is faster under clearer skies. So those 70s quickly drop into the 40s. If we add a cloudy sky, that acts like a blanket and keeps most of that energy in the atmosphere in the lower levels, which means temperatures don't cool off as much. But we had a fairly clear sky, especially northwest of the area, and that allowed temperatures to drop. And once again, cooling is faster under clearer skies. So you might be wondering, well, how does frost form? Well, remember, the sun, as I just mentioned, it heats up the earth during the day. So let's say we have a temperature during the day of around 63 degrees. So right above the grass there, you can see that temperature of 63. Now, say the dew point, which is a measure of the moisture in the air, when the temperature reaches the dew point, that's when we have condensation, and that allows clouds to develop and also moisture. So when that temperature falls close to that 32, that's when we'll be looking out for frost formation. In fact, at night, remember, with that radiational cooling, heat rises and air just above the surface cools. So look at that temperature dropping to about 33. Now remember, the dew point's about 32, so watch what happens, and this is what we get. Watch the frost form there on the grass. So that's when the air just above the surface is below freezing. Cooling forces moisture onto the ground, and freezing temperatures allow the moisture to freeze and frost form. So frost is when we have that moisture go directly into ice, and that's ice crystals at the surface. That's why the ground looks like there's a little coating of snow. It's not snow, it's just in the form of ice. And that's what we had, and we have seen scenes like that this morning across our area. Looks like we have another chance for frost or freeze later this week, but for the most part, it's not looking at anything as widespread as what we saw this morning. So that's kind of the explanation of frost, and yeah, it can happen in our area, especially when we get into the cooler months from about now through, we'll say, February, is when we have the chance to see that, at least on average, when we have the greatest chance of seeing a temperature drop into the 30s. So pretty interesting information there regarding frost and freeze formation. And of course, with frost, you want to make sure you protect those plants, bring them indoors or cover them, as that frost and freeze can kill any sensitive vegetation. Now, you might be wondering, why doesn't it form on the road? Well, typically during the daytime, the pavement, it's darker, of course. So that means it absorbs more heat. So the pavement temperature is 75, but the grassy surfaces actually absorb less heat than the pavement, and we have a temperature of 67 in this scenario. But watch what happens at night. See those temperatures drop much quicker along the grass? That's with no pavement, so there's less heat, grassy surfaces are cooler, and at the nighttime over the roadway, for example, the surface allows more heat to be around, and the pavement is warmer than the grass. But eventually, we see those temperatures drop, as I mentioned, to that dew point. And look at the frost forming. The grassy surfaces reach freezing earlier, and frost forms with no frost. The road surface will take longer to reach freezing due to the more heat in that surface there. And that's why we don't see really any widespread frost on a roadway. Now, temperatures, of course, on the road can get below freezing, but you'd have to have several nights below freezing as that asphalt cools down quicker. So pretty interesting information on frost. I hope you learned something new on that. And again, we'll be watching later this week for that. Let's talk about right now, a beautiful looking shot right here in St. Augustine, looking at a partly cloudy sky. This is a live look there, and we are tracking once again some sunshine, at least more sunshine than what we saw yesterday. Live look there in Julington Creek, where we do have clouds around, but overall it is a dry day. We have a temperature of 49. So the sensor's reading cloudy, although we are seeing some sunshine break through, and pretty chilly though, with temperatures right around 49 degrees. A live look here over Jacksonville, more sunshine around. We do have some clouds as well, but a temperature in Jacksonville reporting 51 degrees with a mostly cloudy sky. So again, remember, as I mentioned, the sun, it warms us up, and that's why temperatures are up from the 30s and 40s, which is where most of us were today. High pressure is still in control though. We do have a front off to our northwest, and that is a dry front that will cross our area. Not expecting any widespread rain with that, but that will be crossing our area later this week. Any rain as well to our north across portions of the Midwest into the Northeast, where some snow and rain are currently falling across the area there. Temperatures, if you are heading out, so you still want that jacket out there, we have a temperature right around 50 in Waycross, 55 in Brunswick, low 50s in St. Mary's. And then notice the more south you are, the warmer it is with the temperature in St. Johns County there. We have St. Augustine at 58, 55 in Palatka, and Green Cove Springs, we're in the low 50s out there. So already seeing that rebound in temperature from where we were this morning. And as we head over the next couple of hours, still keeping that northerly wind around. So again, it's keeping the cooler temperatures around, but for the most part, at least, we are seeing more sunshine across our area throughout the day today. In terms of our forecast, if you have any lunchtime plans into the afternoon, temperatures are in the 50s right now for most of us. We do climb into the 60s by the afternoon under a clear sky, and then by this evening, temperatures right around 60 degrees by 6 o'clock. If you have any evening plans, not really seeing any issues with our weather, and that's after seeing temperatures today climb into the 60s. So remember, yesterday we were in the upper 50s to right around 60. A bit warmer today, though, as temperatures are generally in the mid to even upper 60s. So if you have any outdoor plans, really no issues with our weather, as we're not expecting any rain. Futurecast shows some clouds build back up overnight tonight. We're not expecting a frost or freeze, as temperatures will be a bit milder out there. So again, not a widespread issue like what we saw this morning. For tonight, though, some of those outlying areas, though, into Georgia especially, and across northwest areas of our area could fall into the upper 30s to low 40s. But again, most of us are safely above freezing. Just a very cold night out there. So make sure to bundle up if you are heading out later this evening for any plans. Now, into our day tomorrow, we are looking at temperatures back into the 50s and 60s, so slightly cooler. Remember, that front's coming through, so that drops those temperatures back a few more degrees. So we are a bit below normal, but still, at least we're seeing sunshine across our area. Just make sure to grab the jacket if you are heading out. Futurecast shows on Thursday, sunshine around. It should be a fairly sunny day. A couple of clouds in the morning. Really, that's about it for our area, but we are looking at more sunshine by the afternoon. Clouds and radar, at least locally here in the southeast. As we advance through Thursday, that front is behind us. High pressure builds back in. Later this week, though, we are watching the potential for frost and freeze as that high pressure is over us. And then into the upcoming weekend, we are looking relatively dry as another front is coming through. But again, really not much moisture around with that front. So that's something we'll be looking out for as we head into the end of the weekend. I noticed some snow off to our north with a disturbance there, but that is not a concern for us here in southeast Georgia, northeast Florida. All right, 7-day forecast verifying that we do have temperatures in the 50s and 60s. So 65 for the day today. More sunshine on Thursday, but temperatures will likely be near 60. And then we do warm up over the weekend ahead of another front. So high temperatures will be back to near 70 degrees, if not the low 70s, and then slightly cooler behind a secondary front by early next week. Notice those temperatures, 50s and 60s by Monday and Tuesday. Overnight lows for the most part, though, we are back into the 40s, and it looks like Thursday night will be the best chance perhaps for some of our outlying areas to drop into the 30s. Could be close to frost levels, so we could be talking about a frost advisory or a freeze warning again by Thursday night into Friday morning. I do want to touch up on this, though, over the weekend. Remember, we are tracking a meteor shower, the Geminids meteor shower, and this meteor shower peaks this weekend. Now, this happens every year in December, so you can see the comet of origin that the Earth is passing through some of the debris is 3200 Phaeton. So that is the comet that allowed some of that debris, chunks of it fell off and the Earth goes through it. At the same time, the moon will be at least not as full, which is good. So decent viewing, and you want to go to an area that's away from any light pollution. Make sure you have a clear, unobstructed view. The darker the area you're in, the better, because then you can see the comets better. Allow your eyes to adjust to the sky, and we could be seeing up to 120 to 150 meteors per hour. And again, this is already occurring, but the peak of it will be this weekend. So it's the strongest of the year. Good activity before midnight. And then the peak meteor activity, as I mentioned, occurs on the 13th and 14th. Best to view it after midnight or just before dawn. And that's when we have the best viewing. And I want to show you some images here. And this is of a year before, a couple years ago. This is courtesy of NASA. And this is a composite of the camera looking at some of the meteors. So it kind of snaps photos. They put it all together. And look at some of those meteors. How nice is that, right? So we'll be able to at least try to see that. It looks like skies will be relatively clear, but that's what it looks like in the sky. So it's one of our best viewing meteor showers of the year. Another photo we have, this is another one that NASA took a photo of, and these are the separate meteors. You can see that the area was photographed in. So there were several of them, and there's 32 Phaetons, so some of those meteors, the debris from it, moving across the atmosphere. So that's what makes meteor showers so great, and hopefully the skies will remain mainly clear. There will be a front by the weekend. Could bring some clouds, but we'll keep you updated throughout the week, as we should have not as cold temperatures as well for viewing as we head into the weekend where the meteor shower peaks. Do want to show you as well, another one occurs later this month, and that's the Ursids meteor shower. We'll back that up there, and this comet of origin is 8P, and you can see that the moon's a bit more full, so still good for viewing, but this will peak generally on the 21st and 22nd of the month. It's best viewed in the northern hemisphere. We could see, now notice that a meteor count much less than the meteor shower we're looking at the Geminids this weekend, where it was over 100, only 5 to 10 meteors per hour across our area. So not as visible per se, but at least we have the potential to see some meteors across the area if you miss this weekend's peak. So overall, that's our local forecast. I wanted to break down the weather and our meteor shower and how frost develops. We're now going to go to break, and then I'll have details on our national forecast and how some of that weather could impact us next week and the week beyond. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, everyone. Meteorologist Chris Holtzman here. Let's continue with our Weather Authority Weekday show, and I want to focus now on our national weather, the big story of the week, and that has been the rainfall across the Northwest. We have an atmospheric river set up. Of course, you can check yesterday's episode. I detailed kind of what an atmospheric river is, but look at the rainfall that some areas across the Northwest have picked up over the past 7 days, over 8 to 9, even 10 inches or more over some of the higher terrain there across areas to the northwest. And the first of a series of powerful storms dumped heavy rain and swelled rivers in the Pacific Northwest on Tuesday, and that closed numerous roads and prompted high water rescues. I want to send it over to reporter Drew Mickelson, who shows us some of those rescues in Washington State.
Morning commute interrupted.
Not a very wise thing to do.
The storm turned this I-5 overpass into a bridge over the suddenly swollen Newaukum River. 5 cars got stuck, including a commercial semi. Everyone, though, made it out safely.
They had to break a window to get the guy out of that car.
Napa Vines police chief says floods are nothing new for his town, but these drivers got a refresher course on the dangers of high water.
You don't know how deep it is, you don't know how swift it is, and this is what happens. You get stuck there, and then it's a situation that you can't control.
At the same time, rescuers from Lewis County's Fire District 5 and the Sheriff's Office were called out to homes on nearby Hamilton Road. Boats and a retired military vehicle rescued 7 people and several pets from the neighborhood, surrounded by the Newaukum River. Getting in and out all day was tricky, even for those in high pickups.
Probably not the brightest idea, but we heard that it was getting pretty close to the house there, so we had to go and make sure nothing was getting ruined or nothing we could do to salvage stuff.
Chris Powell's home on Hamilton is getting renovated, so they weren't there overnight. He came back to a surprise.
Yeah, it can sneak up pretty good, because when we left here last night at dark, it wasn't even cresting the river, and this morning it's like this, so it's kind of hard to tell how fast it's going to rise.
I think we got a little bit more to come, understandably.
Since we are not out of the woods, first responders are bracing for a busy week.
We're at the mercy of Mother Nature like always, so we just got to wait.
Well, just incredible shots there. You can see across the Northwest, cars are submerged in water. In fact, we have some video of more cars submerged in water there in Washington State. Drive through roads covered in water. You don't know how deep that water is. So the river submerges the road here. And you can see really the impact of that. Very deep in some of those spots there where you can't even see the pavement. And that's where cars get stalled and folks have to be rescued. So again, it's not a good idea to drive over roads covered in water. We do have some other video in Washington, more video of flooding there. And one thing we're looking at again, roads covered in water, and the threat for landslides continues. You can see that water flowing over the road there. And that's why, again, it's been such an impactful system, because some of the roads that go out of some of these areas are completely blocked, including Portland. We have some video there of water right over the roads in Portland there. And that is really deep water there. So again, really the threat with these atmospheric rivers, it's days and days of very heavy rain across the area, and that's going to continue. So these amounts are only really the past couple of days, but we're going to add about another several days of very heavy rain over the Pacific Northwest. And flooding, by the way, doesn't just impact people, it also impacts livestock. In fact, reporter Bridget Chavez has the details on how some of the livestock had to be evacuated due to the flooding.
From above, the reason people in Snohomish County didn't wait is clear.
Better safe than sorry.
Rising water from the Snohomish and Skykomish rivers made evacuating livestock the obvious choice. Empty stalls at the Evergreen State Fairgrounds turned into safe havens in just hours. Now home to more than 40 horses and 40 cattle, all evacuated from flood-threatened farms.
Just a lot of scrambling, trying to figure out the plans, what's up, who's doing what, the whole barn, what do we want to do.
That scramble is taking a toll on the animals too.
All these horses, these new surroundings, all the different noises and smells, their whole herd isn't with them. The anxiety causing, it's not safe, they don't feel safe.
Fairground staff say they can open more barns if needed. They have stall space for over 400 animals.
We do want to just make sure that, the animals are safe, that people are safe, and they can get them all back home once the floodwaters recede.
It's not just livestock. The Red Cross is also sheltering people here.
Our philosophy is sheltering first.
Volunteers say they can take in at least 100 people.
Helping people during something that can be one of the worst times in their life. And I just want to be able to support them and help them get through that.
The goal now, to keep everyone safe until they can go back home.
Better to be fools and do all the work and not have needed it than to be the fools who thought we didn't need it and really were in a lot of trouble.
All right, so that was a video of the Pacific Northwest. Pretty interesting. Really, the powerful rain and currents lead to mudslides. Of course, livestock are impacted there too. So great information there. And the setup that we have for our system in the Northwest, there's that atmospheric river bringing all that Pacific moisture over land, and that creates snow. So it's rain in the lower elevations, but where it's colder, the snow really piles up in the amount of about feet or more of snow. So high snow rates in the highest elevations closer to the coast, and there's a snow potential even to the east there, closer to some of that colder air. And the rain potential continues around Seattle, Victoria as well. Over to Portland, where we have several days worth of rain, continues with landslide and the flood threat continuing. Best chance for heavier rainfall there you can see in red. So again, a very impactful system off to the northwest. Closer to the eastern areas there of that map, we're tracking that wind potential with perhaps gusts up to 95 miles per hour, and the highest peaks of the Rockies, and there's some elevated wind across some of the higher mountain peaks there in Colorado, Wyoming, over to Montana, and over to the Pacific Northwest. Now, let's talk about our overall setup as we head east, and this is across the Midwest. It's a pretty active track as well as the jet stream has moved south, and This morning, we have ongoing rain and snow across the system track, and into the afternoon, that upper level system, it's an upper level low, and that is bringing snow from the higher terrain in Virginia over to Pennsylvania, and then also over to portions of the upper mid-Atlantic and also New England, across portions of New York, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, where you see some of that snow continues, and even across portions of Virginia and the Allegheny Mountains there. We're looking at an upslope slow component with that northwesterly wind, and later this evening that track remains to the north with snow showers and colder air overhead. Into tomorrow, by the way, we are looking at our setup, and across the north there's that upper level low. Lake effect snow will be possible, and I'll talk about this in a future episode, kind of what lake effect snow is. It's not a concern for us here, but off to the north, the Great Lakes, that's where feet of snow can fall within the span of a half a mile or less. And that is due to bands of snow coming off of the Great Lakes. But anyway, that continues tomorrow as that low moves off to the north, and we continue to see snow across the Midwest and also the Northeast. By the way, the Northeast, we got some snow, and we are tracking, of course, ski season. And ski season, everybody loves these temperatures, snow falling, and if the temperatures are just cold enough, well, ski season, it is getting an early start in parts of the Northeast, thanks to the mix of the cold air and the snowmaking. But building a winter wonderland, by the way, takes more than just freezing temperatures. Emily Pike takes us behind the scenes at a Maine ski resort to show how snow is created from the ground up.
Very wet and loud occupation.
Lost Valley owner Scott Shanaman and his crew are working day and night to get the slopes ready for the resort's second earliest opening in more than 30 years. All thanks to December's cold and snowy start. With a solid base already down, Lost Valley groomers can focus on making a predictable terrain, even with unpredictable temperatures.
You know, it's hard to get perfect snowmaking temperatures to get the really nice quality snow. So when we get it, it's fantastic.
Snowmaking depends on how fast water droplets can freeze, which is controlled by the wet bulb temperature, a measure that focuses on humidity.
It can be cold, but it can be wet cold, and that's not good for snowmaking.
Ski resorts carefully measure wet bulb temperature, humidity, air pressure, and water temperature to create the perfect snow. Even small changes in humidity can affect how fast the snow freezes and how it falls. Water is drawn from the brook at the base of the hill and pumped to the pump house. Then, staff turn on the snow guns, adjusting them however they need.
The higher you go in the stages, you're putting more water in, less air, much more efficient snowmaking.
The pressurized water travels through a network of buried pipes up the hill with connectors wherever a snow gun may be needed.
This right here is the air separator. Moisture builds up in the air pipe, and then it comes through this side and gets deposited down, and then we shoot it out of this valve.
Like, we're getting some mounds here to get the nice forms that we like to see when we're skiing and snowboarding. What do you think this is actually accumulating to?
Maybe an inch an hour.
And since man-made snow often has rounder, denser structure than natural snow, it lasts longer on the slopes, surviving through light rain and warmer temperatures.
All right, so yeah, pretty interesting. I've seen that in person several times growing up in the Northeast. Some of the ski resorts early in the season, they do that because there's no natural snow. And then when you start getting some of that snow, that's when conditions are great for skiing. So pretty interesting to see how that works. I just want to end off with a look kind of at the national shot over the next 3 days. So we are continuing to track some of those larger systems off to our north and over the Northeast and Northwest. And then as we head into Thursday, that system moves out into the Northwest, and that brings the potential for some snow, with more systems tracking with some of those upper level winds off into the Northwest, the Midwest, and the upper plains. But here in Florida, looking fairly dry, as I mentioned, with our forecast. And again, we do have that chance for a frost or perhaps a freeze as we head Thursday night into Friday morning. So we've certainly talked about a lot on today's episode, anywhere from the meteor shower to the storm tracks across the country and some of the national weather stories around. Of course, you can get all of this information every day at 11 o'clock on our Weather Authority Weekday show. But of course, we'll give you the latest forecast coming up at noon and also later on this evening. But for now, though, have a great rest of your Wednesday.
See why every day more people are choosing News4JAX, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.